kind of being a archivist in this sort of sense, you start to learn about bands from the 60s and the 70s and 80s, and you're like, Jesus Christ, there's just so much music that people don't know about. And so that was kind of why I wanted to do a radio show.
Good evening, hikers. Broadcasting from the mist-shrouded woods of the Pine Tree State, it's the Fogcast. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me this fine evening. If you've been with this show for any length of time, you know how deeply we believe in the power of stories. They stir us. They haunt us. They guide us like a lone lantern cutting through the dark. And stories don't just live in books or films or conversations. They echo through melodies, hide in basements, and hum on old cassette tapes. Tonight's guest lives in that world. Ryan Von Ghoulsworth, a Maine-born archivist, DJ, and curator of the strange, has made it his mission to preserve the forgotten and sometimes folkloric corners of Maine's underground music history. From his roots in Auburn to his home base in Portland, Ryan has spent decades digging through the state's DIY scenes, rescuing obscure recordings, documenting lost bands, and celebrating the artists who shaped Maine's sonic landscape. Before we step into the woods, a soft "don't whistle after dark unless you want something whistling back" reminder to join us on Patreon and become a lantern holder tonight. Unlock early access, ad-free episodes, and exclusive extras that linger just beyond the tree line. Drift over to acadiaafterdark.com for more Maine-born horror. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Fogcast, folks. I am joined by Ryan Von Ghoulsworth of Mutants of the East. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. How about you, man?
I am doing very well. I'm super excited for our chat today. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. We got a surprising amount in common as far as what our goals are with our individual projects. And
absolutely.
Very excited. You reached out to me. It was a few weeks ago now, probably closer to a month, unfortunately, because time slips by here in the shadow of the pines. Yeah. But you reached out and you had mentioned that you have a project that you've been following up me for a little while, and you have been working with Mutants of the East, which is now, as of 2025, a record label. Mm-hmm. Didn't start out as that. But before we get into all that, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I am a lifelong Mainer. I was grew up in Auburn, born in Lewiston, obviously, because that's where the hospital is. And yeah, just been in Maine my whole entire life. The only time that I left was I lived in Chicago for a little bit. I lived in Ohio for a little bit for when I went to school. But I made my way back to Maine in 2014. I think that was when I graduated, I believe. And then yeah, just been here in Maine since. I was doing a little bit of stuff with Damnation Land for a while. I was a producer from 2015 to 2019, I believe. And then I started as a DJ at WMPG in 2022, I believe. It's like as you get older, it's like years mean nothing. Like, and so you have to really think. Like, you're like, what number was it? I think it was 2022 is when I became a DJ, and that and the name of my show is Mutants of the East. I'm still doing that to this day. And then yeah, in 2025, I decided to take the leap and make it a record label.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny how Maine seems to call people back. A lot of us leave for a little while and then kind of find our way back here and then lay down roots and start working on things. Later we go.
Yep.
Yeah, talking about, because yeah, right off the bat, seeing a lot of stuff that we definitely have in common. You work in radio since 2022. You said I have been in radio since 2020. I started right in the pandemic. Great time to start in on radio, of course.
Yeah,
you know?
Just stay inside the whole time.
Yep, exactly. I work through WERU up here in the Middle Coast.
Okay.
So I do a coffee house on there on the weekends. Day gig, unrelated to Acadia After Dark, of course.
Yeah.
But broadcasting's super fun, but also a dying art. How did you get into that?
So I actually went to USM, University of Southern Maine, about over 20 years ago. And that's where I did my undergrad. And I've always been into music. I've essentially been collecting like local music probably as long as 2001, maybe 2002, something like that. So when I was going to school here over 20 years ago, I was like, oh, I should do WMPG. I would love that. I had a friend actually who well, he's still my friend, but he was going to school at Connecticut College, and he had a radio show. It was WCNI, I think is what the radio show there is. But I got to see like and hear like what his radio show was, and I was like, I kind of want to do that. So I auditioned. Basically what you had to do back then was you had to create a fake show, and literally I had to record it on a cassette tape. That's how long ago it was. And I think I still have the cassette tape somewhere. I'd have to find it. I haven't listened to it in a very, very long time. But I remember I was sick that day when I was recording it, and so I was all sniffly and just sounded like crap. But the program director at the time, forget their name, but it doesn't matter. But I basically was denied a show, and my audition tape wasn't I guess good enough, or just I don't know, maybe I just made too many mistakes or what have you. So I never actually had that radio show. So it wasn't until 2022 where I decided that I would try it again. And it was actually a lot easier to do it. I didn't have to do it on a cassette tape. I actually did it and basically I think I'm trying to remember, I think I did it in front of Jessica Lockhart, who was the she was the program director, but she's not anymore. She still works there, but I think I just like did it in front of her. Like she was sitting next to me, and I had my headphones on, and I was like, "Hey, here we go." And so I got the show, and that's how it happened, basically.
That's awesome. Did you start out that show like Mutants of the East? What it was then? Is that your first radio show that you pitched, or did you start out with something and then eventually work into the show?
Yeah, this was the what I pitched was local music. It technically was. So it's funny you mentioned the pandemic. Around 2020, I started participating in these like mixtape exchanges, where you get an address and you send a tape to that person. And basically what happened was I started making tapes, and I would always like pepper in some like Maine bands and stuff. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, I can sorry, someone was telling me that they're going for a walk. So I pepper in some Maine bands, and I was like, you know what? I have enough bands that I could put on just one tape, And the first all Maine mixtape that I made was called Mutants of the East. And I sent that to someone, and then I made like 4 different volumes of it. And so I was just like, because I kept like learning of new bands, and then it just became like overwhelming that I was like, kind of being a archivist in this sort of sense. You start to learn about bands from the 60s and the 70s and 80s, and you're like, Jesus Christ, there's just so much music that people don't know about. And so that was kind of why I wanted to do a radio show of this, because I think there's a thing where, like, if you were to ask someone who's not from Maine, maybe even someone from Maine, if you were to ask someone, like, name like a Maine band, like a famous Maine band, I think a lot of people would be very hard pressed to do it. I mean, like, we do have some like big names that have existed. I mean, we got like Rustic Overtones, and we got Global Threat and Pinkerton Thugs and things like that. But we don't have like a Slipknot, Slipknot from Iowa,
right.
We don't have a Minor Threat. They're from DC, like we don't have this one band that like the vast majority of people in the world know, oh, that's a Maine band. Like, we don't have a Stephen King for music, basically.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
So I just been just finding so many bands that have been around for 50, 60 years. And that's what I do on my shows. I just play all this stuff.
That's awesome. I appreciate that for so many reasons, because I've been into music my whole life as well. I played in local bands. I've done, I've been on that end where you're like a underground band that plays shows for 15 people that show up at a garage somewhere in the middle of the woods, basically, and having no radio play because there was nobody, right? We had like, you got your odds and ends community radio stations. Those have been kind of fallen by the wayside over the years, obviously, especially nowadays where internet has kind of taken over everything.
Right.
Streaming is kind of replaced a lot of what most broadcast radio was originally about. So the parts of it that streaming can't do is kind of where you're covering that niche, where you're covering the artists that aren't going to get noticed, that aren't going to get played, aren't going to have that level of curating that goes into your show. And that's awesome. Talking more to that, and you have a specific aesthetic that's kind of comes to mind with Mutants of the East. And you describe it on your Instagram as macabre oddities from the state of Maine.
Yep.
I love that aesthetic, first of all, but the way you phrase it on your link tree, I think gives us a really good picture into what I see in the music and the way you tell the stories behind the music. Preserving Maine's weird, haunted, and overlooked musical background.
Yep.
I didn't really get that until I was going back through your Instagram feed and looking at the posts over time, and how not only, and especially with some of the ones that you're doing for your current project that you've been on, but a lot of the songs that you would bring up, the artists that you would bring up, not only are you shining light on their specific music, but that you're telling their story.
Yeah.
You're keeping the story of the song, the source of it alive. And I like that a lot because I aim to do the same through storytelling of folklore.
Yeah.
You do it with music. Was that your goal and intent coming into this, or is this kind of where you've settled in over time?
I think that, yeah, I think it was always what my intent was, because like you said, I had never, thought of describing it as folklore, but it actually absolutely is. There is a folklore to a lot of these artists, and like what you do with your stuff is that it's like you're telling these stories that exist, and kind of bringing it to light to the masses in a way that is accessible and interesting, And so in terms of like music, it's like no one will find something interesting unless you make it interesting, like I think for a lot of these bands, like a lot of the bands that I showcase on my show, or like even the ones that I am releasing on the label, these are just bands that like never had a social media presence. They never had, because they existed before social media, but they also just didn't have maybe vinyl records, because records are really expensive to press, so maybe all they had was a CDR that they handed out at shows, or whatever, they had a demo tape or this and that. And so a lot of these bands don't have a lot of like history that you can Google, and that to me is interesting. Like a lot of these bands are ghosts, there's not a lot of information on them, and so you kind of have to go to the source. You have to track down the band members. So that's kind of why I do it, is because I think the music is important. I think it's really good. Like I wouldn't be playing this stuff or printing records of them if I didn't think that they were good or important. But yeah, I think it's just like people will find something interesting when you're excited about it, and like, oh, that's he knows a lot about that, or like he's very knowledgeable of that, and I think that gets people excited.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely did a lot for me. And I remember it was specifically one of the posts that had to do with the project that you're doing right now. So Maine Covers Maine.
Yeah,
I love that idea. First of all, thanks. I just want to say that is such a cool idea, and I haven't seen it like really come to fruition before. I see people try and do that, but I don't think it's ever like covered as much ground as you're covering, because I already see a lot of the artists that you post about and stuff, and if it's even a fraction of the ones that I've already like, done covers that are known, and the degree of information, you could almost write a book that goes right along with that album.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
That'd be worthwhile, because reading a lot of them, you go into such detail, not only about the bands, their origins, the stories behind the songs, but then the artists who created the songs originally too. Exactly, and there's so much legwork involved.
There's so many layers too.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see. I think Dusty Boots was one of the ones that like I was just like, wow. I was like, because I just recently saw him performing at
that's amazing.
on Vent. So I was like, oh wow. I was like, I just saw him the other day. And then it was like that afternoon, I'm seeing it pop up in my feed.
Oh, that's great.
Page. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So what gave you the idea of doing Maine Covers Maine?
I would say, so I think this was probably like an idea that I've had even before Mutants of These was ever even a thought. I number one, love compilation albums where people come together and write a song specifically for the compilation. One of my favorite compilations ever was one called Halloween Hootenanny that was put together by Rob Zombie back in 1998 when he had a record label called Zombie A Go-Go Records. it did not last very long, but he put out like 3 or 4 really good records. And the first one, I think, was Halloween Hootenanny, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong on that. But yeah, he just got like a bunch of bands that he liked, and most of them were just like surf and rockabilly bands. He asked them to write a song for it, and they did. And I always really appreciated that. I always appreciated bands who were like willing and excited to write a song specifically for a compilation album that is themed like that. And then the other aspect is I love cover songs. And honestly, I think it goes back. This is going to sound funny, but I think it goes as far back as hearing Marilyn Manson's cover of Sweet Dreams for the first time back in the mid 90s. Because I had never heard a cover song that was not arranged in such a way that it did not sound like the original. I think growing up, there's that one song, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like, you put up a parking lot. That song has been covered so many times, and all the covers sound exactly the same.
Yep.
And that was always just what my understanding of what a cover was like, oh, you just sing the song. It's like karaoke and whatever. But then Sweet Dreams comes out, and, it's like, holy fuck, dude, like, I didn't know you could do that with music. And so I've always really, really loved songs. I love it when bands do covers of songs that are not in the genre that they play in. I think that's really fascinating. So I kind of put those two things together, just like this idea of compilation albums, cover songs, and then the third part of it is like Maine. Yeah, just Maine covering other Maine artists, because there aren't that many Maine bands that cover other Maine artists. There are a few. I do a show on WMPG called Off the Rails, and it's a half-hour show that leads into Locomotives, and I do themed episodes whenever I do it. It's a pre-recorded show, but I was like, maybe I'll do like a Maine Covers Maine episode. So I was like hunting down as many bands doing that as I could, and there just aren't that many. And I really like tried to find. There are some. Kurt Baker, every album he covers a Kip Brown song, and Kip Brown has been in the Maine music scene. I mean, sadly, he passed away a few years ago, but he has existed musically in the music scene since the late 70s, maybe even far back as the 60s. I can't remember how far back his musical journey began, but Kip Brown, was Kurt Baker's I have that backwards. Kurt Baker was Kip Brown's protege, and Kurt Baker just always pays homage to him on like every single album. He has a Kip Brown song. Yep. But really, not a lot of Maine bands covering other Maine bands.
Yeah, no, that does. I mean, I know when I was playing locally, we had a few bands that we were like really good friends with. And every once in a while, we would be playing a show and we'd screw around and we'd be like, hey, buddy, and bust out one of their songs. Because we play with them 15 times a year or whatever it works out to be. You're like, oh, hey, I know that song. So you'd end up just doing it. But it would never get recorded. It would never go anywhere. It'd just be, you might get a one-off cell phone recording at the time, or a videotape of somebody catching us on a stage at the Cave or something like that doing it. But that was really the only time you saw that. So it's cool to see. And I love that concept of taking it, and it's not good. Not that covers that, like you said, just sound the same are necessarily bad, because it is good to pay that respect to the artists. And everybody wants to do that. There's cover bands are a thing for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But having something that really sparks that creativity, that somebody is going to change it, going to make something new. Yeah. I think of like Johnny Cash covering Hurt.
Yeah, exactly. That's another great example. Yeah.
That would never if that song had been done any other way by any other person, it would not have been what it became and what we look at today, right?
Exactly. Yep.
You could have the next Hurt on your hands from this album and its genesis. You could have somebody make a version of a song that is something that is never meant to be, never conceived of, but then could be so much more than the original song.
Exactly.
Was.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's such a great example. Yeah, we can only hope. Yeah, no, I mean, so far, you know, I have a lot of I've had a lot of responses to it, and you know, out of the bands that I've announced so far, I think we do got some, you know, topsy-turvy covers that are, you know, maybe not the same as what, you know, the artist is doing genre-wise. So it's going to be fun. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, that sounds wicked cool. I can't wait to hear and see more. Definitely going to be waiting for that. And you said August is the deadline, so I'm assuming you're looking for a digital release by the end of summer?
Yep. Yeah. So, well, honestly, like, if people can give me their songs, so the deadline's October 1st, and as soon as I get, for all the bands that have reached out to me, I have them written down, and I'm kind of like checking them off as I get their songs. I'm immediately just gonna put it down on Bandcamp because I'm excited, and I think everyone else is. So I'm hoping for, you know, early August as the release date.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. Give us some good tunes for that last end of summer and going into the fall.
Exactly.
Especially if you get some cool, like, spooky covers in there too, because that's a lot of the ones that I was very interested in, of course, because Maine has a lot of dark music, whether it be our metal and punk. Even our folk seems to have like a certain tinge to it.
It really does. Yep.
What is, out of all the genres and all the different types of music that we have up here, what are some of the ones that you think first that speak the most to you, and then best encapsulate Maine?
Ooh, that is a really, really good question. I grew up in the punk scene, so the first show that I ever went to was a local show at the Auburn YMCA in 1997. The headliner was a band called Stick Figure, who were from Orono. So that's kind of where, like, my interest lied. And that's when I started, like, collecting as many albums as I could from shows. I would even, like, you know, email bands who didn't have a release, and I would just be like, give me something. You know, can you just send me something? And it would just be a burned CD. Legitimately, a lot of these bands did not have legitimate releases. So, and a lot of that stuff is what I play on the show. It's just like these bands that just sent me a CDR of songs. So I would say, like, punk is you know, there's a lot of good punk music from Maine. I don't know what it is, but, you know, it's an embarrassment of riches. I feel like it's just, there is a lot. And like you said, the folk scene, also really, really good. If we go back as far as, you know, Dick Curlis, if we're going country, he was doing stuff in the 50s and 60s, and, you know, then we go to like Jet Strunk or Schooner Fair, and then now we like have you know, we got Fashion Jungle from the 80s, 90s, if you want to count, like, I guess Juliana Hatfield wasn't really folk. I guess she was more like alternative. But yeah, like, you know, we got Lisa Liza, we got Greg Jamie, Dusty Buckets, Crying Caleb, you know, country folk sort of stuff, Americana. That stuff is really, really good as well. And then, honestly, black metal. Bandcamp actually did an article a few years back. I'm trying to remember, maybe like 5 or 10 years ago. And it was called, the title of the article was Portland, Maine's Thriving Black Metal Scene. So, I mean, it literally apparently was thriving enough where someone at Bandcamp decided to write an article about it, which was really, really awesome. Yeah. So Lots of, yeah, I would say probably those probably are the most prominent. Black metal for the, the cold winter that Maine gets,
Yeah, that seems to be a common trend. It's like
Yeah.
Norway and us. We all have the same feelings half of the year, so
Exactly.
makes sense. I definitely can see that. It's odd though, because it's like I look back and yeah, I definitely knew some black metal acts around here. It shifted in recent years more to like deathcore and
Yeah.
hardcore. Now, hardcore and punk was like the big thing mid coast
Huge.
for
Mhm.
I mean most of my teens. It was like that was the thing.
Yep.
Then it went to like more of a metalcore sort of like when like I think it was when like As I Lay Dying and Trivium and all those sort of bands hit nationally. All of a sudden we got this really tight pocket and scene between like mid coast and southern Maine that was just all over that. Had some amazing bands come out in that time, but it was just like you said, an embarrassment of riches. But also there is too much of a good thing because when you've got such a small area with only like 3 or 4 venues.
Right. Yep.
That really cover that sort of stuff. That really play that sort of stuff. It's good to see radio now that is doing the work, but for getting live shows and stuff for a while, it was always community centers. It was YMCAs. It was schools, wherever you could book a hall, a Grange Hall or something, you do what you could. One of those things that always like felt very Maine to me in the music scene, and I'm sure you probably experienced this going to shows in the 90s and early 2000s, was driving literally 3 hours out into the middle of nowhere where there would be a decrepit old barn with like 50 cars in the driveway.
Yep.
And that's where like the biggest metal festival of the summer is going on every year.
Well, and they would have to print the directions on the flyer. So it's like you had to be good with directions to be able to find a lot of these places.
Turn by the gas station, look for the fork in the road. Don't go that way, go this way instead. Yeah, exactly. You can't get there from here, that whole deal.
Yep.
So you're in southern Maine. So Gino's Rock Club, I'm sure you probably frequented that place. Aura back in the day, we used to go there a lot. Trying to think of some of the other big ones that went on down there because southern Maine actually had some very good venues for a while.
Yeah, there was Zoots in Portland. There was the Cave that you mentioned as well.
I love the Cave.
Yep. Oh my god, I'm blanking on all. There was one that started with an S. What the hell was that called? Oh god, I can't remember. Yeah, there's just a lot of really great venues, but like in Auburn too, like there was well, actually no, this was in Lewiston. In Lewiston, the one that I went to a lot was there was one called the Raven. I saw a lot of great bands there, and they changed the name to Goth City, and it was like spelled Goth-UM. I was like, what? I don't understand what this means. But the Raven, like when it was called the Raven, I loved that. That was a great back in the day.
Yeah, I could see that being pretty awesome. But yeah, Gotham's a little questionable. It's
like,
are you even sure of yourself at that point? Like, come on now.
Yeah, it was so weird.
Yeah, well, they had, I mean, again, we had bits and pieces of where, like, scenes would come, scenes would go. Music as a whole is carried on, and it's good to see that you're doing work to keep it alive, to keep it relevant, and to bring it to people who haven't heard it before. Because if somebody ever found my album from 25 years ago that I did with my high school band or whatever and were to play it, I'd lose my mind in excitement just because I know there's somewhere out there is a recording of it, but who knows if anybody would ever find it. But it's cool to see, and I think that you're definitely doing something that is not only worthwhile but essential, because music, like storytelling, is how we keep certain messages alive over time. Sure. So absolutely. I think that's definitely a great thing that you're doing.
Oh, thanks.
Have you, aside from, because you do a lot of writing with their social media stuff that I find very interesting, do you have a background in writing, or is this just kind of what you do?
Yeah, kind of like, so when I was in high school, I basically, the job that I wanted was I wanted to write sketch comedy. I was in high school in the late 90s, and I didn't know how to do that because like the internet wasn't really a thing that I did a whole lot. Like I didn't really go on the internet, which is really weird. Like a lot of people find that funny too. They'll be like, "Oh, I kind of pegged you as someone who was very into the internet back in like the pre-internet days," and I was like, "No, I wasn't actually." But I didn't know how to like achieve that, and it was either like have a sketch comedy show or write for late night with Conan O'Brien. That was the other thing that I really wanted to do, and so basically I went to USM, and when I was there, I majored in media writing, to hopefully get into writing there. So not necessarily writing stories or anything like that, but more like scripts and things like that. And then I got my master's degree in film production, and I did movies for a little bit and just got really exhausted by making movies, and kind of retired from doing that in 2019. And then kind of put my focus on music for the most part. But so kind of a little bit of background in writing.
Yeah, no, that when you said that, that definitely clicks, because your writing is almost journalistic in the way that you are able to analyze the components of the song. And again, you do a very good job of telling the story, not only of the artists, but of the songs themselves. And I like that. It definitely is one of the coolest things. If you ever do what, I said, and write a book about like Maine bands, let me know, because I'd buy it. It's I think you'd be on that. Well, aside from the music stuff, we have other things in common, because we both like the spooky, macabre aesthetic of things. And living in Maine, there's a lot of that. So let's get into the favorite part of the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you had any experiences up here in the woods?
Oh my God, I wish. I'm one of those people that like, it's like I feel like the more you want something to happen, the less it's going to happen. And I wish, because like I kind of like, but I kind of toe the line between being like a believer and then also like a skeptic. So it's like I love this sort of stuff, and I think my brain is very logical. So I think if something were to happen to me, I think my brain automatically tries to find a reason for what just happened. So potentially could have had something, but maybe I'm just like, something clicked and was like, oh, that was probably just this, So yeah, I wish I had stories. I don't. A lot of my friends have like really great ghost stories too, and I don't have any.
That seems to be, it's all or nothing up here. It's like either you have seen stuff your whole life and it's like every other day is like a weird experience, or you're able to somehow coast by all of it. And maybe that is a good explanation. Maybe if you have a certain outlook on the world, you have a certain amount of logic to things, maybe you do kind of have an easier time of just writing things off before they enter the realm of the uncanny or the creepy in any sort of way. That does make sense. But obviously with Von Ghoulsworth as your name, you're into horror.
Yeah.
You've got the whole vibe. I love your shirt, by the way. I like the bones and stuff like that.
It's
I have several shirts like that.
It is actually a Pet Sematary
shirt. Amazing.
Shirt,
yeah. Stephen King classic right there. Amazing shirt. Great book.
Great book.
Let's dive into some horror stuff then.
Sure.
Maine horror. What's some of your favorites? Pet Sematary is obviously going to be up there, because if you got the shirt, I'd hope at least that you like the book.
Yes,
I met a few people who absolutely despise it for very specific reasons.
Oh,
but
despise the book.
Yeah, actually very much dislike the book. The movies not so much. Haven't heard a lot of complaints, but the books, I've heard some people say that they do not like the book.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's an odd one. But as far as you're concerned, what's some of your favorite Maine horror related things? Books, movies, etc.?
Yeah, so one thing that I kind of wanted to do with Mutants of the East was to also release movies on VHS. And that hasn't happened yet. I am working with one filmmaker at the moment. And I really good friends with, I don't know if you're familiar with Lunch Meat VHS, but they're one of the biggest like VHS distribution companies out there. And been friends with him for a while, and I asked him if he would be interested in kind of like co-releasing some Mutants of the East, like Maine horror movie stuff. So I have like a list of like movies of Maine made horror movies, but it's so funny because it's like, so one of them is a movie called Lobsteroids. Are you familiar with Lobsteroids?
No, but that sounds awesome.
So it was a movie that was filmed in Portland in the 1980s, and the soundtrack is amazing. It actually has a legitimate soundtrack with a lot of really, really great Maine bands on it, particularly The Brood, and also Carol and the Charmers, who I just released a cassette tape. They have a song on it. So this was a movie that was made in the 80s. It's sci-fi, it's campy, it's like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes type thing.
Love that stuff.
I tracked down one of the directors. So it was directed by two people, and one of them passed away, and the other is in his 80s, I believe. And I actually had a phone conversation with him a couple of years ago, and he's really, really nice. Love the guy. He was not, I don't think he was understanding what I wanted to do with it. I think it's funny to like talk to people who are maybe like 20 years older than I am. I'm going to be 43. And then kind of like talk to them about like what releasing a VHS in 2026 is and what that means, you know?
Yeah.
And because the movie didn't really, I don't think they made their money back. And so he kept saying to me, like, we're going to make millions. We're going to like do this and that. And it just occurred to me that he wasn't understanding like what I wanted to do with it. And and obviously I'm not going to do anything without, his consent to do it. But, when I say like, I'm going to release it on VHS, it's going to be like, maybe like 100 copies or whatever, it's just going to be a fun thing for people to like view and have and collect and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And, so I unfortunately, I think I had to abandon that idea. It is available on YouTube to watch. I think through my conversations with him, I believe there are two versions of it, and he is not happy with the one that is available on YouTube. I believe it was uploaded by the other director who had passed away. But Lobsteroids, great movie. And then there's another movie that I was going to release called Dark Currents. And this was a local cable access TV show / movie from 1991, 92. It was filmed in Mattawamkeag, Maine. And it was like kind of like a mixture between Twin Peaks and Dark Shadows. And I do have the original VHS tape that it was released on. And the only reason that I found out about this movie is because in the VHS collector community, people love regional horror movies. And I kept seeing this this tape that people kept talking about this movie that was filmed in Maine called Dark Currents, and I was like, oh my god, I got to track that down this tape, and so I did, and then I found the director of that, and been trying to get a release of that as well. Yeah, so those are my kind of like what I really like for like the main side of horror movies. I really like the kooky stuff. And when I was producing for Damnation Land, I actually met the guy who directed The Ruins. Is that the name of it?
Oh,
yeah, The Ruins. Yeah, the one about the plants.
yeah.
Because he's from Maine.
Yes.
The movie was not shot in Maine, but he is a Mainer, and I actually met him. I got to talk to him a little bit. He's really awesome. But the book's great. His
Yes.
movie adaptation is great as well. So
Yeah, he did a great
job.
job with that one. Yeah, that was one of those movies I was like, I loved the book, and that was one of those ones I think like a lot of people, I was a bit apprehensive as to how the book would translate to film. He did a good job with it. I think he really did a good job of nailing the feel of everything. And while you can only really capture so much in a movie, he did as well as he could. And having to be a fellow Mainer who kind of can look at the world and get that right feeling out of it. These movies you're mentioning, though, I literally just had to look them up because, first of all, the Lobsteroid one, that sounds amazing. It really is unfortunate that the director couldn't really understand your idea of like preserving it versus thinking of it as like, oh, we get to have another shot at it. And I kind of understand that, right? Because I'm sure that it's probably a hard thing for people to understand their work as like a novelty now, as opposed to like the medium that they wanted it to be in the original.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally understand why he would feel the way that he did. And, it's just one of those things that's like, you kind of have to go like, yeah, I think I'm just going to have to abandon the idea. It's just not going to work. And that is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not worth fighting the tide, especially for, something that if they don't want it done, you're not going to force anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the synopsis of it sounds amazing, though. I mean, giant lobsters attracted by rock music make their way to a beach and terrorize people. That I can see that as being just a fun movie in general. So that is a little sad that we're not going to be able to see like special versions on VHS somewhere like a local horror con or something this year. That would have been nice. Dark Currents, I gotta say, actually sounds like it's right up my alley. Like I just found the series or whatever.
Yep.
And I found the IMDb page. Everything about it sounds great. Like, I'm like, wow, I love Twin Peaks and I love everything about what this show represents. So holy shit, this would be great. So who knows? Maybe I'll end up tracking that one down too and checking it out.
I think that one might also be online to watch. I'm not sure, but it might be. But yeah, it's also really good. But yeah, that's the thing. It's like I love the like. It's just the low budget stuff, the stuff that like people made with their friends and had a budget of like $100, that sort of thing.
Exactly. The campiness is part of the appeal to it, and I definitely appreciate that. B movies were a thing that I think kind of got overdone, obviously, because like for a while it was like that was all people wanted from horror, was like that schlockiness sort of. And nowadays I think that we've got a pretty good medium for horror, especially here in the state, because it's like you can have that high end stuff. Like just over the weekend, we had some big indie releases that did phenomenally in the box office. So at the date of recording, today's the beginning of June. And we just over the weekend had The Backrooms did phenomenally well.
Yep.
As well as Obsession did last week. Both indie movies that are coming from essentially out of nowhere with next to nothing in a budget. And yet they were beating the box office numbers of Star Wars this year.
I know, it's crazy.
Isn't this wild?
Yeah, and I've seen both of them. Both of them are fantastic. And they are made by really young people.
Yep.
And both of them got their start on YouTube, which is like really interesting.
Yeah. I think the internet is definitely going to open up a whole new medium for when it comes to horror and storytelling, because there are some short films that you can find on there that are absolutely like just as good as anything you would see A24 or half of these other companies put out on a given day. And I think A24 did do the Backrooms. Did they do Obsession too, or was that a different studio?
That's actually a really good question. I'm curious now. Did Obsession do that?
If not, I have a feeling they probably didn't. Okay, it had that same feel. It had that same feel to it. So I kind of either way, it's like, you know, we've got this new age where like storytelling, the internet is making it easier to access information. I'm sure that with your work and trying to find music and reach out to bands and contacting them, it has to have been a useful tool. Despite that, though, there's obviously a fair share of drawbacks, and we all, I'm sure, are aware of those. With your projects, what you're working on right now, and then going into the future, what place do you think the internet holds in helping to preserve music, especially underground music?
So it's really funny because like when I started this label, I was actually very anti-streaming. I don't actually really stream music. I listen to, I mean, this is going to sound like incredibly pretentious of me, but my relationship to music has always been through a physical medium. And it's really hard for me to connect to music through streaming, because I like holding something. I like looking at something when I listen to music. I like hearing the texture and that sort of thing. So legitimately, it was not until just before I released the Caroline the Charmers album where the stuff that I was releasing was only physical media. So my first two albums that I released weren't on Bandcamp. And then it just got to a point where I was like, I'm going to have to suck it up and understand that not everyone is me, and that not everyone listens to music the way that I do. And so I made the decision to finally put that stuff on Bandcamp for people to listen to and to download digitally. And especially with Carol and the Charmers, I think that was a big deal to me because the band formed in like 1983, which was the year I was born. And they could have been bigger than they were. And I felt really proud of that album, even though I wasn't in the band. I felt proud of it, you know, and I felt more people need to hear this. And so that was really like, that was the deciding factor. It was like, you know what, the idea is not, Mutants of the East is not physical media. Like it is, like I release physical media, but Mutants of the East is needing people to discover these bands. That's what it's about. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, this does have to be streaming. People need, because I want people to listen to this music. And and I had to, you know, swallow my pride and just be like, you can still release physical media, but also like it gives people a chance to like listen to the bands, because like before they were just blindly buying this stuff and you know, because of the artwork or whatever, and not knowing what they were going to get. So so basically I just had to really like make a decision to change how I was doing that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I can definitely understand. First of all, I appreciate that you were at least giving some of the newer audiences that 80s and 90s experience of buying an album based on vibes alone and cover art and hoping that it was good. Because I think all of us had a few duds that came out of those years where you'd buy one, you were like, oh, look at that, it's sick. Oh, this is gonna be awesome. You get home, there's like one listenable track, the rest of it is just a dog shitting on a vinyl. But there's also, I mean, definitely, like you said, and it's part of what I think a lot of authors want when they write a book. They want to keep that book, and whether it's about a profit or just having it be more of a personal thing or an intimate thing, of that it's a physical thing and it's so a little limited in its exclusivity. I think opening up that approach like you did, of like saying you'd rather people be exposed to it and get to see the music and appreciate it for what it is rather than keep it to yourself. The internet helps with that for sure. It does take away that exclusivity of things, but I mean, nowadays it's like when you're talking about music that never got the chance to have the appeal that it should have, like you were talking about Carol and the Charmers, there's definitely an audience out there that all they need is that one chance to hear it. And maybe it just be streaming for a day on Bandcamp or Spotify or whatever it is. But then they can look deeper. They can find more as a result of that. And you might create somebody that ends up being their biggest fan they've ever had. That's awesome. That's so awesome. I really. Actually,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, man.
Oh, I was just going to say, what I'm finding is that I am getting a lot of non-Mainer orders, from people who are in Oregon or California or Texas or whatever, listening to the music and buying the albums and stuff. And that makes me feel good, that there's national love for these bands, and I want that. I want people from not Maine. Of course, I want Mainers to be proud of where they're from and listen to this stuff. But it is really cool to have people from outside of Maine also really like that stuff.
For sure. Yeah, it definitely gives you a little sense of that hometown pride in a way, especially when you're the one showing it to them and they're learning about it through you. I know one of my favorite things is when I'll have somebody who will randomly comment from just a far off place, somewhere that I never would have thought of would care about Maine or a little neck of the woods. And they'll randomly comment and be like, oh, I just discovered this show and I'm reading about this book now. And it's all things. And some of them, they end up just like becoming just as interested in it as any person from here. And that's cool. I love that feeling. It's really neat. It gives me a little pep in my step to think of, hey, I just showed somebody something that they never would have seen because we hide it up here. In this corner of the world, right? But that's such an awesome. I really do think that what you're doing is a great thing. It's preserving the storytelling and music, the storytelling of our underground scene up here, which is surprisingly deep. I don't think people understand how much like music is up here because nobody sees it. Like you said, we don't have an artist that everybody can point to and they're like, that's the main guy. But at the same time, my whole life up here, it was always music at the Grange Hall, music at the drive-in, music here, music there. Even just going to town and walking down the street, you'd hear people playing music and stuff. It's always been around up here. Being in bands myself, being in radio, etc. It's like everything connects back to it, and that's such an intrinsic part of the Maine experience that I'm so glad we got to have you come on and talk about.
Oh, thanks.
It's a very, very important thing to me. I appreciate you reaching out and letting me know about your project, because if I hadn't learned about it from you, I probably wouldn't have heard about it until I just stumbled across it one day and was like, what is this? This is awesome.
And it's funny too, because it's like, it's sort of like doing this helps other people get to the project. But it's what's really funny is what my selfish reasoning for reaching out to you is really just so I could talk about spooky things. Like that was like legit. Like that's why I reached out, because I was like, I just want to talk about cryptids and spooky stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to talk on that. I'm always happy to talk about that sort of stuff anytime.
Can I ask what your bands were?
Sure. So the two that I know, because we played, actually there's three that I know we played shows.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are recorded. There are traces of it, bits and places across the internet. So the first one that I ever played in, this was back just out of high school. I was probably only maybe 18 or 19 at the time we were doing shows. It was Union River's Tragedy.
Oh, wow.
We're based out of Maine Covers Maine. We were trash. We were like a hardcore deathcore band before deathcore was a thing, and we were god awful. We really just made the most obnoxious music that we could. We had a blast doing it, but it was that sort of shock rock, sort of like just stay awful stuff, see how much you can get away with on a stage, that sort of a deal. The next band after that, and it was some years later, I was in a band called Killing Voorhees.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a very fun one with a friend of mine, Thomas Washburn. He's an absolute, he's a giant of the Maine music scene. So if you don't know him, like look him up and look at the bands he is. Thomas Washburn Jr. Not only is he, I'm going to talk him up for a second, because not only was he an amazing musician, and he was one of the best people I've met in all of my time of like doing music and shit around Maine, he's also a phenomenal horror author.
Oh, fantastic.
And so he's an absolute great guy. I was in a band with him. We only got to do one show at the time because the guitarist we had playing with us ended up moving like pretty much like a week after the first gig that we did. The band was Killing Voorhees. It was like a mixture between, like, I'd say like a mixture between probably like Wednesday 13 and like Iron Maiden or something like that.
Oh, wow.
It was very fun. Awesome. Horror themed, and just a blast to play in. We played one show at the Cave before that went away. And then the most recent band that I was in was actually one that I got into just after the pandemic, and it was called Incandesca. And that band was more of a metalcore, prog metal sort of in between project. That one we actually even got signed for a while. We were doing a ton of shows.
Oh, wow.
Then we all came into just various like vehicle difficulties and stuff. And man, I tell you, trying to keep an underground band alive nowadays, it's such a financial burden. And I can't help but think how many people are so creative and just are never going to get the chance to truly show it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of just the strain of being able to maintain a vehicle and instruments and going to shows that are 2 or 3 hours away, because that's the only place that's going to be willing to book a band like you more than once a year. And like, you know, it's not to gripe about it, but that is one of the things that has been taken away from us over the years, is like it's made it less accessible for people to make art.
Right. Yeah, and you need a huge social media presence to you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I me personally, if it wasn't for the podcast and the things I do with social media for that, and connecting with people like you and others that hum on the show, I probably wouldn't use social media at all. Like I hate it for so many reasons.
Yeah,
that it's not worth the trouble. But it is an essential part of this whole thing, right? You can't get away with it, unfortunately. So it's the nature of the beast. But nonetheless, super glad that we got to have this conversation today. Wicked glad that we got to connect and talk about so many things that we share in common. I would love to definitely have you on the show again sometime down the road, talk more about various spooky stuff, whatever we can gab, I'm sure, for quite a while, because there's so much music and stuff to talk about. I try to keep the shows to an hour. Very rarely does it ever actually go less than an hour. And I'm sure that you and I could probably have 2 or 3 episodes worth just talking about the music scene.
Absolutely.
So we'll save that for another day. Nonetheless, before we do get ready to go, I want to give you the opportunity. Anything you want to plug, anything you got going on, anything you want my audience to know about?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be at the Punk Rock Flea selling stuff in Portland at Gino's. The Punk Rock Flea is always at Gino's. I think they do it like every month. June 14th, I'll be there. You can come see me, say hi, buy some records. Got a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, stay tuned for the Maine Covers Maine compilation album. Hopefully that'll be like early August on Bandcamp. Just Googled Mutants of the East, you know. I finally got to the point where I figured out how to SEO and all that, and like, get everything to like, even when you type something in, it's literally all the results are what you do. So you just type in Mutants of the East, you can find it,
Fantastic.
So,
I will definitely be adding your links and your link tree and stuff to Instagram in the show notes and everything, so people will be able to find you. You'll see them on the site. We're probably going to be having this episode up in the middle of June.
Perfect.
So that one will hopefully give people an opportunity to get to see some of the stuff you're doing. If any artists that listen to us happen to want to get in touch with him to get on this album or to work with him in the future on other stuff you're doing, good opportunity to do so. So I will make sure that I put all of your information so people can definitely get in contact.
Absolutely.
It has been fantastic having you on the show,
So much
Ryan.
fun.
I very much appriciate it. I definitely want to do this again. I'm super excited to hear this Maine Covers Maine album. I love Maine music. I love music in general, but hearing Maine music by Mainers for Mainers,
yep,
you can't sell me more than that. Like, that's it.
Can't get better than that.
No, exactly. So I am very much looking forward to that come this fall or end of summer if it all goes according to plan. So we will look forward to that.
You'll be the first to know.
Hell yes, man. I can't wait. Well, Ryan Von Ghoulsworth, thank you so much for coming on. And everybody, thank you all for listening. I'll be back with you in a few.
And that's where we'll leave the signal for tonight, hikers. Ryan, thank you for tuning our ears to the forgotten corners of Maine's musical world. And to you, hikers, your footsteps through these fog-drenched hours mean more than you know. If you enjoyed the episode, please do me a personal favor and leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, or drop us a rating on your audio platform of choice. It helps get the show in the eyes and ears of more people. The Fogcast is an Acadia After Dark production. Background music and sound effects are from Epidemic Sound, and our title song is courtesy of Pine Tree Riot. If you want to help support the show, then consider joining us on Patreon and become a lantern holder tonight. Finally, if you want more of Acadia After Dark, then head on over to our website, acadiaafterdark.com, where you can find news, articles related to the show, merchandise, and more horror from the dark places between the pines. Keep those lanterns lit and stay safe out there.